What's happening, y'all? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now, where we're bringing the village to the brothers. Every couple of weeks, you can look forward to a quick inspirational message or a thought-provoking guest with knowledge and wisdom, all geared towards helping you be the best father that you can be. We're bringing the village to you. Now it's your turn to do something with what you learned. All right, y'all. Let's go. What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now, and I hope you're having a great day today, whichever day that you choose to download, listen, comment, and share this podcast. But I hope y'all having a good day, man. And today is a little something different, man, and we're going to start having periodic episodes that I'm going to call Sneakers and Planes. And Sneakers and Planes pretty much is all about travel, because I'm a firm believer that travel is extremely important for everybody, because it takes you out of your norm, it takes you out of your routine, but it exposes you to stuff that you otherwise would not be exposed to as, you know, a person that just goes through your daily stuff. You know what I'm saying? And that allows us to grow, that allows us to challenge our perceptions. But then you can also learn things. And so travel is extremely important. And so periodically we will have a Sneakers and Planes episode of Black Fathers Now. And so, and Sneakers and Planes pretty much is just all about, you know, traveling, whether it be by sneaker or by plane. So it doesn't mean it has to be something exotic. You know, you can travel to, you know, a foreign destination, you know, in your own city. You know, there are parks, there are festivals, there are churches and synagogues and mosques and everything else, you know, within your city that you've never visited before that would, in essence, be travel, which would, in essence, be something outside of your norm. You know, you can simply take a different way to work every day, right? Try a different route to work. You know, take the scenic route. You know, they call it the scenic route for a reason, you know, because it's other stuff to see. And that literally helps you to see life from a different perspective. You know, you can view it through a different lens. And so, so today's Sneakers and Planes episode of Black Fathers Now is pretty much talking about my family's recent trip to Cancun. My wife and I have, you know, been different places around the world and experienced different cultures and interacted with different people. But my kids have never had an international experience. And so, you know, they got their passports last year. And so from that point forward, we've been looking for opportunities to take them somewhere outside of the country to interact with people from different places. And, we had to find something that fit in the budget. We wanted to find something that would not be, you know, too long of a flight for this initial jaunt, you know what I'm saying? So we chose Cancun, and there were, you know, some good travel deals and everything, and we flew out of Atlanta. You know, one travel tip, definitely if you live in a smaller market, is to probably plan your travel out of a major market, as you will get better flights, right? And so we live in Knoxville, Tennessee, but we drove 3 hours to Atlanta to get a better flight deal because, you know, flights times 4 tends to add up. Right, my kids are 4 and 6, so but we chose Cancun, and you know, usually when my wife and I travel just by ourselves or maybe with other adult couples, you know, we're not overly bent on all-inclusive resorts. That's not a necessity or that's not a requirement. But with the kids, it was definitely something that made life a little easier, right? You know, you had food and things like that at your disposal 24/7, and it helped to minimize some of the confusion, you know, in another location. So we chose an all-inclusive resort in Cancun. Before we really dive into this thing, let me kind of speak a little bit about the costs that were involved for traveling with our family of 4 to Cancun. You know, we flew out of Atlanta, obviously, you know, major airport. You tend to get better deals out of Atlanta. But we flew out of Atlanta, and we actually happened to find direct flights to Cancun from Atlanta. And a lot of times I like to find package deals because I tend to find that, when you bundle the hotel and the flight together, that you tend to get some type of discount, right? Like when I was going and searching for just flights by themselves to Cancun from Atlanta, the flights by themselves were not much less expensive than the flight and the hotel packages that were also available. Okay. And so, and I use a lot of different services. I mean, the typical place that I start is kayak.com, KAYAK.com. So you go to kayak.com, and kayak.com is basically a big aggregate site where, they look and search through Expedia and Orbitz and hotels.com and cheaptickets.com. They basically go through each one of those sites and search whatever your criteria is, and then they bring the best deals back to you, right? So kayak.com is where I tend to start my search for any type of trip, whether it be domestic or international flights, or even sometimes just hotels. And what was interesting about this trip or whatever was the fact that we found direct flights from Atlanta to Cancun, and we found deals that were that fit into our budget. And when we say budget, everybody has different budgets. I know that, but I'm just going to speak specifically on what we found. Any trip that we take, I mean, I know this is not always reasonable, but I try to always make like $2,000 kind of like the standard or kind of the barrier, so to speak. So I always try to use that as kind of like my measuring stick. And I know some trips are obviously going to be way more expensive than that, but that's always where I start from, is around $2,000. And this was a family of 4. And so I know you're saying, like, how can 4 people go to Cancun for $2,000? Well, it was a little bit more than that. We ended up finding an all-inclusive deal with flight and hotel, and it came out to just shy of $2,500, and that was for 4 people. And that was round-trip air plus our all-inclusive resort. We stayed at the Park Royal all-inclusive resort in Cancun. And so it came up to just shy of $2,500 for 4 people. Flights, hotel, all-inclusive. When all-inclusive means all your drinks, all your food, everything is included. And so, and that was, we left on a Sunday and we came back on a Thursday. So Sunday to Thursday, direct flight from Atlanta to Cancun, all-inclusive resort for 4, which was my wife and I and our 2 kids. And they're 4 and 6, and that came out to just shy of $2,500, so like $2,400, so to speak. And then when we got there, we also had to have travel hooked up back and forth from the airport to the hotel. Now, a lot of the travel blogs recommend that you book your travel prior to going, just to kind of minimize having to haggle with taxi drivers and all of that. And typically transport to and from the hotel, I mean, depending on who you're going with, that could be anywhere from $20 to $40, 20 to 40 US dollars. And so it just depends on how many people are with you and who you hook it up with. So, but you can book that through whatever travel agency or whichever place that you book your flight from. Usually there's an option for you to book travel. And we actually had some points because our flight and hotel, actually, when we use Kayak, the best deal came from Expedia. And because I had used Expedia in the past, I actually had some points to redeem, and so we actually got our transport to and from the airport for free. That was kind of included because I had some points built up there. But either way, even if you have to book it, the airport to your hotel and the hotel zone, it's typically going to run you, anywhere from $20 to $40, depending on the service that you choose. Not too bad. And the only real excursion that we booked was we went to see Chichen Itza. And so we booked a small group tour to Chichen Itza. And that small group tour, we actually went online and went through, I think either TripAdvisor or something. But we were looking at the different options that were out there. And we found a deal it was like $60 per person. And that $60 per person for this all-day excursion included transportation from your hotel or pickup from your hotel at 7:30 in the morning. The 2.5-hour ride to Chichen Itza, a tour guide that speaks English. You had lunch included. He gave you a guided tour all throughout the ancient ruins, and just a lot of history. We ended up getting a Mayan calendar, and then also, transportation back to your hotel that evening. And so that was $60 per person. It was well worth it. And so, but outside of that, you can spend as much or as little as you want. So you probably, if you search around, could probably find an even better deal than we found as far as the hotel and flight all inclusive. But you can also go top end and spend a heck of a lot more money if you want to. But I just kind of wanted to lay that out for you, just so you all kind of get a gauge of what we spent, so that you look at this thing and realize that international travel does not have to be, limiting, right? Don't think that you have to spend 10 grand to take your family on a trip in which they get their passport stamped. And, passports. I mean, step one, if you don't have a passport, fellas, go get your passport. Go get your passport. Go get your passport. And go get your kid's passport, right? Typically, well, not typically, with an adult, your passport is usually valid for U.S. passports, valid for 10 years. With a kid, they're valid only for 5 years. I guess because kids change and grow and develop, their passports are only valid for 5 years. So, if you go ahead and get passports, and especially with kids having their passport, that kind of puts a little fire under you to go ahead and book an international trip. You dig? So, okay, now let's finish our description of this Sneakers and Planes episode. And so, but yeah, so we were gone for a few days. We left on Sunday, came back Thursday. It was a short trip during spring break, but we flew out of Atlanta. We went to Cancun, and we stayed at the Park Royal all-inclusive resort in Cancun. And it was a cool experience, man. I mean, the resort was not necessarily a 5-star resort, and they were actually going under renovations currently. The view was still beautiful. The grounds were still beautiful. The people were awesome. But, again, it was not necessarily perfect because there were, construction crews and stuff going on. Oh, my kids actually just came outside. Before I jump into my synopsis, let's ask them what they thought about their trip to Cancun. Maxwell, come here for a minute. Tell the people of Black Fathers Now, the listeners, the fellas, what you thought about your trip to Cancun.
Eating.
Huh? Eating?
Yeah.
Now, tell us about what you enjoyed about your trip. What did you think about it?
Oh, just playing and in the kiddie pool.
Uh-huh. What else?
That's it.
That's all you really enjoyed?
Uh-huh.
That's my 4-year-old Maxwell. Okay, Morgan, now you tell me what you enjoyed about your trip to Cancun.
I enjoyed the food they had and the beach and the kiddie pool. And I liked the eating because they had dessert for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I never had that before. And the reason I like the kiddie pool is because we met lots of friends, and I had lots of slides, and it was very, very fun. And the reason I liked the hotel and the beach and stuff like that, I liked the beach because it was really pretty, and it was close to our hotel. And I liked the hotel because it was very, very pretty. And also, we got in our first room, we got to eat fruit, but the ants came and there was ants on the desk, so we had to move to a new room. I was sad about that, but it turned out good. It was really fun.
What else about the trip that you enjoyed?
I just loved seeing the ancient ruins and seeing the 100 pyramid stuff that was 180 years old. 1,080 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love seeing it and meeting new people.
Where did you meet? Where were some of the people you met? Where were they from? Do you remember? Oh, come here, Maxwell. What?
Paris.
You met somebody from Paris.
Seattle.
Where else?
China.
Okay, where else?
Japanese.
From Japan.
Japan. Japanese.
Yes, they were the Japanese people. What other places did you meet people from? From Brazil?
From Brazil, Augusta, Knoxville. Africa, too.
We didn't meet anybody that was from Africa, I don't think. But go ahead. Anybody else? Any other places that you remember people came from? Was it Hong Kong, too?
Hong Kong.
Yeah, you remember that on
Hong
the tour?
Kong.
Okay, somebody was from Hong Kong. That's cool. Well, thank y'all for your insight there. I think the fellas gained a little bit of insight for their kids. Say what now?
And we also had some people from Cancun, which makes 7.
That's right. Yeah, you met some people from Cancun, and you played with some kids from Mexico and down in Cancun, correct?
Yeah, and I also met some friends. I also met a friend at the hotel.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You met the lady at the hotel.
Oh.
That was your buddy. And you met your buddy, too, at the hotel, too, right, Maxwell? Both of them were from Mexico.
Colton.
Huh? Oh, you remember? Oh, yeah, remember Colton? Yeah, they were from Iowa. Colton. But you met some other friends, too. That's really, really cool. Well, fellas, okay, so you got a little taste of what the 4 and the 6-year-old said about the trip to Cancun. But like I was mentioning, we stayed at the Park Royal all-inclusive resort. It was a cool location, great location, great grounds, great people. The food was pretty good. Like my little girl mentioned, the first room that we got in, I don't know if it was a spill in there or something, but we did notice like some ants or something. So they just moved us to another room. Our next room was perfect. We had a view of the beach and it was just awesome. And so part of that was to show you, part of that is to say that, don't let some small inconvenience completely disrupt your trip, right? So the first room we got to, we saw some issues. We had to go, right? So therefore they moved us to another room and everything was fine. And what you notice is the kids completely glossed over that. That was something that really did not disrupt their experience. And so sometimes we as parents can learn from them, because at the end of the day, we will allow something like that to completely disrupt our trip. Whereas they're just like, okay, whatever, just some ants. They just gloss over it and keep moving, and they remember all the good stuff. That's some wisdom that we can kind of take from that. So the cool thing was, from Atlanta, it's only like a 2.5-hour flight. So it's literally a shorter flight from Atlanta to Cancun than it is from Atlanta to the West Coast. So that's a little something there that if you didn't know, makes it pretty, pretty doable, so to speak. But yeah, so we got there. We hung out at the hotel a good bit. Like they mentioned the kiddie pool. They had a really good kiddie pool there. But the thing about it was, at the kiddie pool, the kids were playing with kids from all over the world, from all different cultures, from different races, different backgrounds, and they just had a good time. They met people, right? And when we were on a tour, like one of the days we did an all-day excursion to Chichen Itza, which is, basically one of the, I think, the new 7 wonders of the world, if I'm not mistaken. But it's the Mayan ruins. And so all these different temples, and it's a lot of history, from, over 1,000 years ago. And it's a lot of similarities between that and the Egyptian pyramids. And I was asking, I'll open it in just a minute. Hold on, buddy. A lot of I was asking the guides about the differences or the similarities between the Mayan ruins and the pyramids of Giza, or, all throughout Egypt. And it was interesting because he mentioned that there were a lot of similarities. And when they were explaining the Mayan ruins and all the mathematics involved and all the astrology that they utilized to formulate the directional facing of this one and of that one, and, the steps, the number of steps had, numerical references to this and the Mayan calendar and how that's connected to the woman's cycle. And it was fascinating because over 1,000 years ago, they utilized all of this technology, all of this math, all of this science with rudimentary tools, right, to build these things that are still in existence today. Fascinating. So if you ever get to Cancun, I highly recommend a trip to Chichen Itza, and definitely get a good guide and go experience that and really get some good history on on Mayan civilizations from well over 1,000 years ago. And so and truthfully, that was the only excursion that we had planned, right? Chichen Itza is a full day excursion. They pick us up early in the morning, It's like a 2-hour drive out there, and then you eat and hang out and get tours and see stuff and experience culture. You get a drive through the Yucatan state, which is, kind of the Mexican countryside, so to speak, compared to Cancun. And you see actually, glimpses of real Mexico outside of just the touristy stuff that's really geared towards, towards us. You see how regular folks live, which is really cool. And that's what we really like to do when we travel and go to different places. And so we were able to do that, with this trip and kind of get a little glimpse of that. And the kids got a glimpse of that when it comes to, just to seeing how different folks live and, and just realizing that we're all people. We might come from different places. We might have slightly different environments, but you know what? We're all people and we can all get along if we really try. And so, so it was a really, really powerful experience for us all. Let me think what else. And so literally that, kind of is it, the food was there at the hotel. So we ate a lot there outside of, our day-long excursion to Chichen Itza. So we ate pretty much at the hotel and just interacted with a lot of people there and, took advantage of all the things that were there, played on the beach. The kids literally,
Why does this keep going down?
hold on, buddy. They spent all day at the kiddie pool. And that just gave us all opportunities to really just unwind and relax, kick back, and then also just to connect with different people, learn about everybody's story, and learn about where folks are from, and why they were there themselves, and all of that. So it really just opened up the window of opportunity to learn, to experience, to engage, and more importantly, to connect and learn. And so so yeah, man, I highly recommend, you travel by yourself, travel with your lady, travel with your family, but just travel, man. Get out and experience things. And remember, travel does not mean that you have to get on a plane and fly to some exotic location. This is a sneakers and planes segment, right? Meaning that whether it's by sneaker, meaning you get it on foot, or by plane, you have to fly somewhere, just travel, right? And travel is really not about being somewhere exotic. It's just about doing something different. That detour on the way home is in essence travel. You see something different. That new experience, that new festival, that new church, that new mosque or synagogue or whatever, that new thing that you're experiencing in your own city is travel. It expands your horizons. It allows you to see things differently. But the other thing about it is then it also allows you to develop a level of patience that you don't get when you're used to things happening a certain way, right? And so once you're out of a routine and you're experiencing something different, you don't have any kind of preset defaults of what you are to expect. So that forces you to, by default, become patient. And so that's really important in life. As fathers, as black men, as black fathers, learning patience and understanding how to kind of deal with, adversities and challenges. Like we mentioned, the hotel being under construction and having to change rooms. And one of the other main challenges with our travel was, the transportation to and from our hotel. Going from the airport to the hotel was fine, but the issue that we had an issue on our transportation from the hotel back to the airport at the end of our trip. We couldn't communicate with the transportation company, and the numbers that we had didn't work, and so we couldn't confirm it. So long story short, we ended up having to just book transportation back to the airport, by another means. And so you hear my dog barking in the background. It's once again, this is Black Fathers now, so y'all are hearing fatherhood in action. My kids are outside, hanging out with me while I record this. And after a while, they get antsy and they get the dog riled up and, they're ready to go play. So we're about to end this thing. But anyway, y'all, I encourage y'all to go travel. Look forward to more Sneakers and Planes episodes going forward where we just explore the whole notion of travel, especially travel with your family and getting your kids, experiences outside of the normal stuff that they're used to help them to grow. Because remember, exposure leads to opportunity. Now, fellas, as always, this episode is brought to you by Black Family blackfamilyaapparel.com. You can visit blackfamilyapparel.com and grab some awesome apparel that celebrates the nuances of the Black family. As always, follow Black Fathers Now on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and definitely connect, man. Shoot me some DMs, shoot me some messages. Let me know what's popping. Let me know what you think about the episodes. Let me know about, some previous episodes that you've listened to with some awesome guests that we've had. And maybe if you have some guests that you'd like to hear from going forward that you think would be a great fit on Black Fathers Now, shoot those to me as well, as I'd love to connect with really dope individuals that are all about really helping to bring the village to the brothers, bring insight, inspiration, and wisdom so that we can ultimately make excellence in Black fatherhood the new standard. And let's see, visit blackfathersnow.com and share this episode out, man. Share this episode, share this podcast with your friends, with any brother who's looking to be a better version of himself. Share this thing out there. And I guess until next time, fellas, be blessed, well, and wise, and I'll holler at you. Peace. Yo, fellas, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And always visit blackfathersnow.com, as well as follow Black Fathers Now on virtually every social media platform you can think of. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Just follow us and engage with us, man. Look forward to hearing from you. And I guess until next time, I'll holler at you. Peace.